Stories and Stovetops, an Introduction. From the earliest days of stories, when hunters came home from the hunt to tell of their exploits around the campfire, while gnawing on a leg of beast, to the era of kings and castles listening to the storyteller at the royal dinner feast, to the time of TV dinners when whole families gathered to eat and watch movies together, stories and eating have been close companions. So it is not unusual that folk stories are often about food. Jack's milk cow traded for beans, Snow White given a poisoned apple, a pancake running away from those who would eat it. But there is something more, and this is about the powerful ties between stories and recipes. Both are changeable, suiting the need of the maker and the consumer. A storyteller never tells the same story twice, because every audience needs a slightly different story, depending upon the season or the time of day, the restlessness of the youngest listener, or how appropriate a tale is to what has happened in the storyteller's world. And every cook knows that a recipe changes according to the time of day, the weather, the altitude, the number of grains and the level teaspoonful, the ingredients found or not found in the cupboard or refrigerator, the tastes or allergies of the dinner guests, even the cook's own feelings about the look of the batter. So if you want to tell these stories yourself or make these recipes yourself, be playful. After first making them exactly as they are in this book, you can begin to experiment. Recipes, like stories, are made more beautiful by what you add to it. Add, subtract, change, try new ways. We have, and we expect you will too. In fact, in the recipes, we have already given you some alternatives, like different toppings and other spices. Jane Yolen and Heidi E. Y. Stemple. A note from the storyteller. All these stories are retold by me, but are based on old folk tales, except for the last one, which I made up entirely. When a storyteller retells a folk tale, she seeks out as many versions as possible, understands the story's structure, and then uses her own words in the telling. In some cases, I have added dialogue, description, or rhymes. Occasionally, I have renamed characters. I always look for new ways to say old things. And as I work, I always read the stories aloud to make sure they trip easily off the tongue. Finally, there are Marginalia Notes set in the margins of the stories, to tell you where each story comes from and how it has traveled. When I talk about a tale type, I am referring to the Arne Thompson Index, also called the Types of the Folktale. It is a system of grouping stories, mostly European tales, by reference numbers according to their themes, and was first developed in 1910 by Finnish folklorist Antti Arne. That system was later enlarged by American folklorist Stith Thompson in 1928, then updated again in 1961. The volumes in The Types of the Folktale help folktale researchers see which stories share common themes or building block incidents. Jane Yolen. A note from the cook. The recipes in this book were put together by me. I am not a professional chef, just a mom who enjoys cooking with her children. Some of these recipes I cook all the time. Lemon chicken and the seaweed stuffed shells are family favorites. Some were gifts from particularly generous friends, and some were created especially for this book. But for each one, I cooked many different batches, remeasuring and changing ingredients, trying to make them both delicious and easy to understand. As with all recipes, you have to make allowances for differences in equipment, ingredients available locally and seasonally. Some recipes are difficult and will require a grown-up's help and a special trip to the grocery store. Others will require only what is already in your kitchen. But cooking should not only be about the end product. Like a story, it's about the act of creating as well. My main chef's helpers and taste testers were Madison Jane, age 7, and Glendon, age 19. They are now 11 and 23. Recipes can be made in a short time. Books take a lot longer. My children, being so different in age, help me cook in different ways. Madison enjoys stirring, cracking eggs, and measuring, while I have Glendon to do prep work such as cutting of vegetables and meat. They both enjoy the eating. When making the recipes in this book, make sure to have parental supervision using knives or cooking. That way, each parent can decide what each young chef is capable of. Always remember safety in the kitchen. The obvious dangers are heat and knives, but also remember to pull back long hair, especially if you're cooking on a gas stove. Wash your hands and equipment often, and keep the ingredients you are going to eat raw away from foods you are preparing to cook, especially raw meat. Now pick out your recipe and set out your equipment, gather your ingredients, and start cooking. Heidi E. Y. Stimple.